The velvet box felt heavier than it should have. Camilla's fingers trembled as she slid it into her handbag, the soft click of the clasp echoing louder than thunder in the silent room. Outside the door, footsteps approached. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She had maybe 30 seconds before someone walked in. The Queen's private sitting room was never supposed to be empty at this hour. But today fate had created a window. A narrow, dangerous window. And Camilla had walked through it. The diamonds inside that box had belonged to Queen Elizabeth herself. Not the crown jewels, no. These were personal. A bracelet the Queen had worn on her wedding day. Earrings she'd received from her mother. The kind of treasures that held more than monetary value. They held memory. They held legacy. Camilla straightened her coat and glanced at the ornate mirror hanging near the fireplace. Her reflection stared back, pale and sharp. She looked guilty. She knew it. Anyone with eyes would know it, but no one had seen her enter. And no one would see her leave. Or so she thought. The door swung open without warning. Camilla spun around, her breath catching. A figure stood in the doorway, backlit by the hallway's golden glow. Tall, broad-shouldered, unmistakable. It was Marcus. It's one of the senior guards assigned to the royal family. His eyes swept the room in a single practiced motion. Then they landed on her, and they didn't move. "Mrs. Fitzroy," he said, his voice calm but cold. "I wasn't aware you had clearance to be in this room." Camilla forced a smile. It felt like glass on her face. "Oh, Marcus. You startled me. I was just looking for something I left behind yesterday." "Yesterday," Marcus repeated. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him with a quiet finality. "You were here yesterday?" "Yes, briefly, with the family." Her hand instinctively moved toward her handbag, then stopped. Too obvious. She let it fall to her side. Marcus walked closer, his boots silent on the Persian rug. His gaze never left her. "The Queen's sitting room isn't used for casual visits, ma'am?" "You know that," of course, Camilla said quickly. "I just thought, what were you looking for?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Camilla's mind raced. A book? A scarf? A letter? Anything believable. But her mouth felt dry, her tongue slow. "A pair of gloves," she said finally. "I think I left them near the window." Marcus glanced toward the window, then back at her. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Suspicion. Or worse, certainty. He said softly, "And did you find them?" "No. They're not here." He stood between her and the door now. Not blocking it, exactly, but present, immovable. Like a wall made of duty and silence. Camilla's handbag felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The velvet box inside might as well have been screaming. She could feel Marcus's gaze drop to it for just a fraction of a second. Then back to her face. "Mrs. Fitzroy," he said, his tone darkening. "I'm going to need you to open your bag." Her blood turned to ice. "Excuse me." "Your bag," Marcus repeated. His hand moved toward the radio clipped to his belt. "Open it, now." And that's when Camilla realized something she should have known all along. Marcus wasn't just any guard. He had been the Queen's personal protector for over a decade. He had stood beside her at state dinners, funerals, and private moments no one else would ever see. He knew every item in this room, every painting, every trinket. He knew what was missing. If you're loving this story so far, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a powerful story. Camilla's throat tightened. She had two choices: lie and run, or confess and face the consequences. But before she could decide, Marcus took another step forward, and his eyes turned to stone. Camilla's fingers curled around the strap of her handbag. Her mind screamed at her to move, to say something, to do anything but stand there frozen like a criminal caught in the act. Because that's exactly what she was. "Marcus," she said, her voice tight, "this is ridiculous. You're overstepping, am I?" His tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. The weight of it filled the room. "Then you won't mind showing me what's inside?" Her pulse roared in her ears. She could feel sweat forming at the base of her neck despite the cool air. The velvet box seemed to burn through the leather of her bag, branding her guilt into her skin. "I don't have to explain myself to you," she said, lifting her chin. "I'm a guest of the family. You have no authority over me." Marcus didn't blink. "I have authority over this room. And everything in it." Silence swallowed them both. Outside, the wind rattled the window panes. Somewhere in the palace, a clock chimed the hour. But in this room, time felt suspended. Trapped Camilla took a slow breath. She had to regain control. She'd spent years navigating these circles, learning how to smile, how to deflect, how to survive among people who could destroy her with a whisper. She wasn't about to let a guard undo all of that. "You're making a mistake," she said softly, her voice shifting into something smoother, almost gentle. "I understand you're just doing your job, but you're accusing me of something you can't prove. That's dangerous, Marcus. For both of us." His jaw tightened. "I'm not accusing you of anything yet." "Then let me leave." She took a step toward the door. "And we can both forget this happened." Marcus moved. Not much. Just enough to stay between her and the exit. His hand rested on his belt, near the radio. One call, that's all it would take. One call, and a dozen guards would flood the hallway. One call, and her life as she knew it would end. "Mrs. Fitzroy," he said quietly, "I've been doing this job for a long time. I've seen people try to take things from this family, paintings, silverware, letters. You'd be surprised. How often it happens?" "I'm not if I've also learned," he continued. "Cutting her off, that the ones who talk the most are usually the ones hiding something." Camilla's hands trembled. She clasped them together to hide it. "You don't know what you're talking about, don't I?" Marcus tilted his head slightly. The Queen kept a detailed inventory of everything in this room, down to the smallest trinket. She was meticulous, obsessive even, and I helped her maintain it. Camilla's stomach dropped. "So when I walked in here 10 minutes ago," Marcus said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, "and saw the cabinet near the fireplace open, I knew something was wrong. Because that cabinet is always locked. Always." Her eyes flicked toward the cabinet. The small brass lock hung loose, the door slightly ajar. She'd been so careful. So quick, but not careful enough. "I didn't touch that cabinet," she said. But the words sounded hollow even to her. Marcus walked past her, his boots heavy on the floor. He stopped in front of the cabinet and crouched down. His fingers traced the lock. Then he stood and turned to face her again. "The Queen's wedding bracelet," he said. "Her mother's earrings, a brooch given to her by her grandmother." He paused. 3 items, all kept in a velvet box. Camilla couldn't breathe. "Are those the gloves you were looking for?" The room seemed to tilt. She grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. Her mind raced through 100 excuses, 100 escape routes, but they all led nowhere. "I... .. Her voice cracked. She stopped, swallowed, tried again. "I was going to return them." Marcus stared at her. "Return them." "I borrowed them. For a photograph. A private photograph. I was going to bring them back today, but then stop." His voice was sharp now. Final. "Don't insult me." Camilla's face flushed. Anger and fear twisted together in her chest. "You don't understand. I have a right to those. The Queen. She promised me she promised you nothing." "Ah!" Marcus's eyes blazed. "And even if she had, those items belong to the crown now. Not to you. Not to anyone." Tears pricked at the corners of Camilla's eyes. Not from sadness. From rage. From the injustice of being caught. She'd been so close. So close to walking out of here with something that could have changed everything for her. "Please," she whispered. "Marcus, please. If you report this, I'll lose everything." He didn't respond. His hand moved toward the radio again, and Camilla realized she had only one card left to play. A card that would either save her or destroy them both. Thomas didn't hesitate. He bolted after her, shoving past a cook carrying a tray of pastries. Plates crashed to the floor. Someone shouted, but Thomas didn't stop. The woman was fast, darting through the kitchen toward the back exit. She slammed through the door and into the narrow service corridor. Thomas was right behind her. His boots pounded against the stone floor. His radio crackled with confused voices asking what was happening, but he couldn't answer. He couldn't let her escape. The corridor twisted and turned. She knew the palace layout well, too well. She took a sharp left, then disappeared down a servant's staircase. Thomas followed, taking the steps 2 at a time. His lungs burned, his heart hammered at the bottom of the stairs. She burst through another door into the lower storage halls, dark, quiet, lined with old. Thomas could hear her footsteps echoing ahead of him. He pulled out his flashlight and swept the beam across the darkness. "Stop," he shouted. "You can't run from this." But she didn't stop. She kept moving deeper into the maze of storage rooms. Thomas could barely see her silhouette in the shadows. Then suddenly, silence. The footsteps stopped. Thomas slowed down. He controlled his breathing. He listened. Nothing. Just the hum of old pipes in the walls and the distant sound of the palace. Above, she was hiding. He moved carefully now, checking each doorway, each corner. His hand hovered near his weapon, though he hoped he wouldn't need it. He just needed to catch her, to make her talk, to confirm what he already suspected. Then he heard it. A soft shuffle. To his right, behind a stack of old chairs, Thomas spun around and shined his light directly at her. She was crouched low, pressed against the wall, her face streaked with tears. She looked young, maybe 30, terrified. "Don't move," Thomas said firmly, his hand on his radio now. "It's over." "You don't understand," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I didn't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice," Thomas said. "Now tell me who sent you." She shook her head violently. "I can't. If I tell you, they'll kill me. If you don't tell me, the king dies." "Is that what you want?" Her face crumpled. She started sobbing. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I swear I didn't. But she said my daughter. She said if I didn't do it, they would hurt my daughter." Thomas's blood ran cold. "Who said that?" The woman looked up at him, her eyes filled with desperation. "The queen consort, Camilla. She came to me 3 days ago. She knew things about my family. Private things. She knew where my daughter went to school. She knew everything." Thomas felt his anger rising. This wasn't just murder. This was manipulation, blackmail, cruelty. Camilla had targeted a mother, someone vulnerable, someone who would do anything to protect her child. "What's your name?" Thomas asked, his voice softer now. "Alina," she said quietly. "I'm a temporary cook. I was only hired last week, and the powder." "What was it?" Alina wiped her eyes. "I don't know. She gave it to me in that pouch. She said it would look like a heart attack. She said no one would ever know. She promised my daughter would be safe if I just did this one thing." Thomas knelt down to her level. "Alina, listen to me carefully. Your daughter is going to be safe, but you need to help me stop this." "The powder you dropped, was that the only one?" Alina hesitated. Then slowly she shook her head. "No, there's another pouch. She gave me 2, just in case one wasn't enough." Thomas's stomach dropped. "Where is it?" "I hid it." "In the kitchen?" Behind the spice cabinet near the stove, Thomas grabbed his radio. "This is Thomas to security control. I need the kitchen locked down immediately. No food leaves that room. No one touches anything until I get there." The radio crackled. "Confirmed. Locking down now. What's the situation?" "Possible contamination." "Send 2 guards to the lower storage hall, Section C. I have a witness who needs protection." "Copy that." Looked at Alina. "You're going to come with me? You're going to show me where you hid that powder. And then you're going to tell the head of security everything Camilla said to you. Can you do that?" Alina nodded, still trembling. "Will my daughter really be safe?" "I promise you," Thomas said. "We'll make sure of it." As they climbed back up the stairs, Thomas's mind raced. He had the evidence now. He had the witness. But confronting Camilla was going to be the hardest part. She wasn't just anyone. She was the queen consort. Accusing her would shake the entire palace. Maybe even the entire country. But the truth was the truth. And the king deserved to know who was trying to kill him. Camilla's car idled at the edge of the long driveway. Palace loomed behind her in the rearview mirror, its windows glowing like judging eyes. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. She'd escaped. She should have felt relief. Gratitude, even. Case could have destroyed her with one radio call. One sentence. Instead, he'd let her walk away, but she didn't feel grateful. She felt humiliated. Exposed. Small. The diamonds were gone. It's the future she'd imagined. The security. She'd craved all of it dissolved in a single confrontation. And worse than that. Marcus's final words echoed in her mind like a curse. If the queen had wanted you to have those, she would have given them to you herself. Camilla's eyes burned. She blinked hard, refusing to let the tears fall. She'd learned long ago that tears were weakness. And weakness got you nowhere in this world. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers and scrolled through her contacts. Her thumb hovered over a name. Gregory, an old friend. A lawyer. Someone who might be able to help her salvage this disaster. But what would she even say? I tried to steal from the royal family and got caught? She set the phone down. No, she couldn't tell anyone. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The rain started then, soft at first, then harder. It drummed against the windshield in a rhythm that matched her racing heart. Camilla turned on the wipers and watched the palace blur behind sheets of water. She should leave, drive away, disappear before someone changed their mind. But something kept her there, rooted. Frozen pride, maybe, or stubbornness. Or the simple aching refusal to accept that she'd lost. Her phone buzzed. A text. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number, her stomach tightened. She opened the message. I know what you did. Camilla's breath caught. Her eyes darted to the rearview mirror, scanning the grounds behind her. No one. Just rain and shadows and the distant glow of the palace. Another message appeared. We need to talk tonight. Alone. Her pulse hammered. Who was this? Marcus. No. He would have said something in person. He wouldn't play games. Someone else then. Someone who'd seen her or heard about it. A third message. Meet me at the old groundskeeper's cottage. Midnight. Come alone, or everyone will know. Camilla stared at the screen. Her mind raced through possibilities. A trap. Blackmail. A setup. All of the above. But underneath the fear was something else. Curiosity. And maybe, just maybe, an opportunity. If someone else knew what she'd done, that meant Marcus had talked. Or someone had been watching. Either way, this person had leverage. And in Camilla's world, leverage could be bought. Sold. Traded. She typed a response with shaking fingers. Who is this? No reply. She waited. 1 minute, 2-5 nothing. Camilla. Tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and pressed her forehead against the steering wheel. Every instinct screamed at her to drive away, to leave this place and never look back. But she couldn't, not yet, because whoever sent that message had power over her now. And Camilla had spent her entire life learning one brutal lesson. The only way to survive power was to take it back. She started the car and drove through the rain, away from the palace, but not toward home. Toward the city, toward a small, quiet hotel where no one would ask questions. She'd go to the cottage tonight. She'd meet this mystery person. She'd find out exactly what they wanted. And if they tried to destroy her, she'd destroy them first. The rain poured harder. Thunder rumbled in the distance. And somewhere deep in the palace, Marcus stood at the window of the queen's sitting room. Watching the taillights of Camilla's car disappear into the storm, he pulled his phone from his pocket and looked at the messages he'd sent. Then he deleted them. He hadn't wanted to do this. He'd wanted to believe that letting her go would be enough. That fear and shame would keep her away. But he'd seen the look in her eyes as she left. The anger, the defiance. She wasn't done. Not yet. And if Camilla wasn't done, then neither was he. Marcus locked the sitting room door and walked down the hallway, his boots echoing in the silence. He passed portraits of kings and queens, their painted eyes following him as he moved. He reached his office and closed the door. The room was small and plain. A desk, a chair, a filing cabinet. Nothing grand or ornate, just functional. He unlocked the bottom drawer of the cabinet and pulled out a folder. Old, worn, marked with a single word in faded ink. Fitzroy. He opened it and spread the contents across his desk. Photos, documents, bank statements, letters, years of research. Years of watching, waiting, because Marcus had known long before today exactly who Camilla Fitzroy was and what she was capable of. The Queen had known too. She'd asked him to keep an eye on Camilla, to document everything, to be ready if the moment ever came when Camilla's greed outweighed her caution. That moment had arrived. Marcus picked up one of the photos. It showed Camilla at a gala, smiling beside the Queen. They looked like friends. Equals, even. But beneath the surface, Marcus knew the truth. Camilla had been circling the family for years, ingratiating herself, building trust, all while slowly, carefully, positioning herself to take what she wanted. He'd watched her lie to the Queen's face, watched her manipulate staff, watched her steal small things, testing boundaries, and now, finally, she'd gone too far. Marcus closed the folder and locked it away again. He checked his watch. 6 hours until midnight. 6 hours to prepare, because tonight in that cottage, he was going to give Camilla a choice. Confess everything, walk away forever, and live with the shame, or refuse, and face the consequences he'd been building toward for years. Marcus turned off the light and stepped into the hallway. The storm outside grew louder. Lightning flashed through the windows, illuminating the palace in bursts of white light, and in that light, Marcus's shadow stretched long and dark across the floor, unmoving, unwavering, ready. The groundskeeper's cottage sat at the far edge of the palace grounds. Half hidden by overgrown hedges and ancient oak trees, it hadn't been used in years. The windows were dark. The door hung slightly crooked on its hinges. Camilla parked her car a quarter-mile away and walked the rest of the distance. Her heels sank into the wet grass with every step. The rain had stopped, but the air was thick and cold, clinging to her skin like a warning. She checked her phone. 11:58 p.m. No new messages. No missed calls. Just the 3 cryptic texts from earlier. Glowing on her screen like accusations, she slipped the phone into her coat pocket and approached the cottage. A single light flickered in the front window. Not electric. A candle, maybe? Or a lantern. Someone was inside. Camilla's heart raced. Every instinct told her to turn around, to leave. But she couldn't. Whoever was in that cottage had power over her now. And the only way to take that power back was to face it head on. She reached the door and paused. Listened. Silence then. From inside, a voice. "Come in, Mrs. Fitzroy." Marcus did immediately. Marcus. Anger flared in her chest. She shoved the door open and stepped inside. The cottage was small and musty. Dust covered every surface. The furniture was draped in old sheets. And in the center of the room, sitting in a wooden chair, was Marcus. He looked different in the dim light. Older, tired. But his eyes were sharp as ever. "You," Camilla said, her voice dripping with venom. "You sent those messages." "I did." Marcus gestured to another chair across from him. "Sit." "I'm not sitting." "Then stand." His tone was calm. "Unbothered, it makes no difference to me." Camilla crossed her arms. "What do you want, Marcus? If you're planning to blackmail me, you're wasting your time. I have nothing left to give. I'm not here for money." "Oh, then what?" Marcus reached into his coat and pulled out a folder. He set it on the small table between them. "I'm here for the truth." Camilla eyed the folder warily. "What is that?" "Your file." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Everything you've done. Every lie you've told. Every small theft. Every manipulation. All of it, documented." Her blood ran cold. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Marcus opened the folder and turned it toward her. The Queen asked me to keep records. She didn't trust you, Mrs. Fitzroy. She never did. Camilla's hands trembled. She stepped closer and looked down at the contents. Photos of her at palace events. Copies of emails. Bank statements showing deposits she couldn't explain. Even a list of items that had gone missing over the years. Small things she'd thought no one would notice. A silver letter opener. A porcelain figurine. A pair of antique gloves. Her face drained of color. You had no right, I had every right. Marcus's voice hardened. The Queen gave me that right. She knew what you were, and she wanted to make sure that when the time came, there would be proof. She never said anything to me. Of course not. Marcus closed the folder. She was giving you a chance, hoping you'd stop on your own. But you didn't. You got bolder, greedier. Camilla's mind reeled. All this time, she'd thought she was careful. Clever. But the Queen had been watching, waiting, building a case against her. Why didn't she confront me? Camilla asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because she believed in second chances. Marcus's expression softened for a moment. Even for people like you, people like me, Camilla repeated bitterly. You mean people who don't belong? People who weren't born into this world. I mean people who take without asking. Marcus stood. People who see kindness as weakness. People who think loyalty is something you can buy or sell. You don't know anything about me, I know enough. He picked up the folder and held it out to her. And now you have a choice. Camilla stared at him. What choice? You can walk away tonight. Forever. Leave the country if you want. Start over somewhere else. And this folder stays locked away. No one will ever see it. And if I refuse, Marcus's eyes darkened. Then I take this to the family and to the authorities. And you spend the rest of your life answering for what you've done. The room felt smaller suddenly, suffocating. Camilla's mind raced through her options. Run, fight, deny everything. But every path led to the same place. Ruin. You're bluffing, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Am I? Marcus set the folder on the table and pulled out his phone. He scrolled through it and held it up. One call. That's all it takes. I have the deputy commissioner on speed dial. He's been waiting for me to give him a reason. Camilla's legs felt weak. She sank into the chair across from him, her defiance crumbling. Why are you doing this? Because the Queen asked me to. Marcus sat down again. She made me promise that if you ever crossed the line, I'd give you one last chance. One final opportunity to choose the right path. And if I don't take it, then I fulfilled the rest of her request. His voice dropped to a whisper. And make sure you never hurt anyone again. Silence filled the cottage. Outside, an owl hooted in the distance. The candle on the table flickered, casting wild shadows on the walls. Camilla looked at the folder. At the evidence of her failures, her greed, her desperation, and for the first time in years, she felt something she'd forgotten how to feel. Shame. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said quietly, but it did. I wanted to belong, to be part of something bigger than myself. Her voice cracked. I thought if I had those things, those treasures, people would see me differently. Marcus shook his head. They're just objects, Mrs. Fitzroy. They don't make you who you are. Then what does? Your choices. He leaned forward. And right now, you're standing at a crossroads. You can choose to be someone who runs from the past, or someone who faces it. Camilla wiped her eyes. What do you want me to do? Disappear. Quietly. No goodbye letters. No final visits. Just go. And never come back. She nodded slowly. And the folder. Destroyed. The moment you're gone, Camilla stood on shaking legs. She looked around the cottage one last time. Then at Marcus. She really did care, didn't she? Camilla asked. The Queen. More than you deserved, Marcus said. But yes, she did. Camilla walked to the door, paused, turned back. Thank you, she whispered. Marcus didn't respond. He just watched as she stepped into the night and disappeared into the darkness, And once she was gone, he picked up the folder and fed it page by page into the candle's flame. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in the Queen's sitting room again. The morning light poured through the windows, soft and golden. Touching everything with warmth, the velvet box sat in its place inside the locked cabinet, untouched, safe. He'd checked it every day since that night at the cottage. Not because he didn't trust the lock, but because he needed to see it, to remind himself why he'd done what he'd done. Camilla had left the country. He'd confirmed it through his contacts. A one-way ticket to Australia, no return date, no forwarding address. She'd kept her word, and so had he. The folder was gone, burned to ash. The evidence scattered to the wind. No one else knew what had happened. Not the family. Not the staff. Just him and Camilla, and the memory of the Queen, watching over them both. Marcus heard footsteps in the hallway. He turned as a young woman entered the room. She was tall and poised, with the same regal bearing the Queen had carried.
"Good morning."
"Marcus," she said warmly. "Your Highness." He nodded respectfully. She glanced around the room, her eyes lingering on the cabinet. "Everything in order?" "Everything," Marcus confirmed. She smiled. "Good. I know how much this room meant to her. And to you." Marcus didn't respond. There was nothing to say. She was right. This room held memories he couldn't put into words. Moments he'd carry with him forever. The young woman moved toward the window and looked out at the grounds. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Did my grandmother ever talk to you about legacy? About what we leave behind?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "Often." "What did she say?" He joined her at the window. Outside, the garden stretched endlessly, green and alive. She said legacy isn't about the things we own. It's about the choices we make when no one's watching. The young woman turned to look at him. "And what choices did she make?" "The kind that gave people second chances," Marcus said quietly, "even when they didn't deserve them." She studied his face for a moment, as if sensing there was more to the story. But she didn't press. Instead, she placed a hand on his shoulder. "Thank you, Marcus, for everything you did for her, and for everything you still do. It's my honor." She left the room, her footsteps fading down the hallway, and Marcus was alone again with the silence and the light, and the ghosts of the past. He walked to the cabinet and unlocked it one more time. He opened the velvet box and looked at the bracelet inside. The diamonds sparkled, catching the morning sun. He thought of the Queen wearing it on her wedding day. Young and radiant, full of hope for the future, he thought of Camilla, standing in this very room, her hands trembling as she reached for something that was never hers to take. And he thought of the cottage, the folder burning, the choice he'd made to honor the Queen's final wish. Mercy, it wasn't easy. It didn't feel fair, but it was right. Marcus closed the box and locked the cabinet. He pocketed the key and turned to leave, but as he reached the door, he heard something. A sound so faint he almost missed it. Laughter, soft and familiar. Like a memory carried on the wind, he looked back at the room. Empty, silent, but somehow not lonely. He smiled. "Rest well." "Your Majesty," he whispered. Then he stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind him. The palace continued its rhythm. Staff moved through the corridors. Visitors came and went. Life carried on as it always did. But in the Queen's sitting room, something had shifted. The air felt lighter. The shadows less heavy, because the story of Camilla Fitzroy had ended not with scandal or ruin, but with grace, and Marcus had learned something he'd carry with him for the rest of his life, that sometimes the greatest act of loyalty wasn't about protecting what someone owned, it was about protecting who they were, and the Queen had been kind, merciful, even to those who didn't deserve. It's so Marcus had been too. He walked down the long hallway, past portraits and tapestries and centuries of history. His boots echoed on the marble floor, steady and sure. Outside, the world moved on. Newspapers printed stories. People gossiped. The palace gates opened and closed, but no one would ever know what had happened in that sitting room or in the cottage on that rainy night. Some stories, Marcus knew, were meant to stay hidden, not because they were shameful, but because they were sacred. And as he stepped into the sunlight, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: peace. The queen would have been proud, and that was enough. The velvet box remained in its cabinet, locked and safe. The diamonds sparkled in the darkness, waiting for the next person worthy enough to wear them, not because of bloodline or status, but because of character. And somewhere, far across the ocean, Camilla Fitzroy stood on a beach. Watching the waves crash against the shore, she thought of the palace, the sitting room, the guard who'd shown her mercy when he could have destroyed her, and for the first time in her life, she didn't feel the need to take anything from anyone. She was free, and that, she realized, was the greatest treasure of all.